Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not just reading a story, we're actually looking at its architectural blueprint.
That's right.
You've given us this fascinating set of sources that outline the foundational texts for understanding the life of the Buddha, something often called Phutta Prawat.
Right.
And our mission today is to map out exactly where the key parts of that story, the conception, the birth, where they actually originate.
It's the ultimate key to being well informed on this, because you can approach the scriptures and it's just this vast, overwhelming sea of text.
It's huge.
But our sources give us the essential structure right away, this crucial distinction between the earliest records and, well, everything that came after.
Okay, let's unpack that right there, that core distinction. We're talking about the Tipitaka, the main collection of scriptures.
Right.
What is that fundamental split we need to get?
It really just boils down to authority and time. On one side, you have what are, let's call them the primary canonical accounts. This is the earliest layer of biographical material. It's traditionally seen as coming directly from the Buddha or, his immediate disciples. That's the framework.
And the other side, that's where all the rich details and stories come from?
Precisely. That's the commentary tradition. These are later texts, the Atthakatha. They were written to explain, to interpret, to really fill in the gaps of those core texts.
I see. So the primary accounts give us the structure.
And the commentaries give us the color, the miracles, the incredible detail, and understanding which one you're reading changes everything about how you process the information.
That makes so much sense. It's like the difference between reading the original Constitution and reading a detailed biography written centuries later.
Exactly. And today we are anchored in the Sutta Pitaka, the discourses. The sources point to three specific textual categories that really form this map for us.
The structural core, the details, and the lineage.
That structural understanding it's foundational. Scholars basically organize the Buddha's history into these three buckets. First, as we said, the primary canonical accounts.
From the main collections, like the Dīgha Nikāya and Majjhima Nikāya.
Right, that's the skeleton of the narrative.
And the second category. This is where the sheer scale of it all becomes clear. Tell us about the commentaries.
Well, the commentaries are just an immense scholarly undertaking. The core texts are relatively contained. The commentaries, on the other hand, just explode outwards.
How big are we talking?
Our sources mention traditional frameworks that categorize this material into, say, 108 sections, or, get this, even 605 volumes of supplementary material.
Wait, 605 volumes?
Yeah.
That's not a footnote. That's an entire library dedicated to just interpretation. That really shows the weight of this secondary tradition.
Absolutely. It's a centuries-long academic project. The commentaries show us how the understanding evolved, how later generations processed the teachings, often adding, more dramatic or miraculous elements to really highlight the Buddha's stature.
Which brings us to the third category.
The lineage. The Buddha lineage, or Buddha Vamsa.
What's that?
It's a specific section in the Dīgha Nikāya. Its whole purpose is structural and historical. It systematically lists the succession of enlightened beings.
So, to recap, we have the core structure, the huge explanatory library, and the historical ledger.
Right, and that gives you, the listener, the ability to hear any story about the Buddha and immediately ask, is this the foundational framework, or is this from the rich, detailed expansion that came later?
It takes you past just hearing a story to understanding its source and context.
Yes. So now that we have the map, let's zoom in on the two key suttas that define those earliest accounts of the conception and birth.
Okay, let's start with this idea of a universal pattern. We're turning to the Mahāpadāna Sutta, which is in the Dīgha Nikāya. What's the main purpose of this text?
What's really interesting here is that the sutta isn't primarily about Siddhartha Gautama, our Buddha. It focuses almost overwhelmingly on the lives of previous Buddhas.
So it's not his unique biography?
No, not at all. It's a text dedicated to establishing a universal template.
A template? What do you mean by that? Like a checklist for becoming a Buddha?
Essentially, yes. It's the cosmic rulebook. It says, if you want to know how a Buddha achieves enlightenment, appears in the world, and teaches, you look here.
So by detailing the past lives, it's showing that our Buddha's life is part of a bigger repeating cycle.
That's the key insight. The Mahāpadāna Sutta is basically telling us, this has happened before, this is the protocol.
And our sources mention that this is where the standard narratives of conception and birth are laid out.
Exactly. Within this repeating structure, the sutta details the bodhisattva's descent into the womb, the circumstances of the birth. And these are all presented as common events. things shared by all previous Buddhas.
So what are some of those consistent points? What's on that non-negotiable checklist for the cosmic story to work?
Well, the emphasis is all on purity and consistency. For instance, it would set out the criteria for the mother, her character, her lineage. It establishes the specific, pure way the conception must happen.
So setting the stage.
It's setting the stage. It's providing the necessary structure to connect Gautama's story back to that huge lineage in the Buddhavamsa. It's saying he fits the mold.
That's a powerful idea. It anchors his individual story in this cosmic continuity. But if that sutta establishes the universal pattern, where does the story become singular?
And that is where the contrast becomes really profound. We shift from the universal checklist to the absolutely unique.
Okay.
Let's turn to the Acharya Abhuta Sutta from the Majjhima Nikāya. This text focuses specifically on the marvelous and unprecedented things.
The things that only happen in this Buddhist story.
Exactly. So if the first sutta says, all Buddhas share this structure, this one says, but this event was one of a kind, and here's why.
So this is where the awe-inspiring stories come from.
This is where they originate. This sutta details the extraordinary phenomena around the bodhisattva's conception and birth. It transforms the pattern into a narrative of, profound religious significance.
Okay, give us some detail. What are the specific themes or narratives here that this sutta really emphasizes as being unique?
It emphasizes the celestial reaction to his arrival, the way the world itself reacts. It details the unique way he enters the womb, and, maybe most critically, the incredible events that happen right before, during, and immediately after the birth.
Like the first steps.
Yes, the traditional narrative of the bodhisattva immediately taking steps and making a momentous declaration. The vows made upon his arrival. This is presented as an unparalleled action.
And I think the sources pointed out this is where the discussion of his physical characteristics comes from too.
Absolutely. The Acharya Abhuta Sutta provides the framework for detailing the specific signs that designate him as a great being, the famous 32 marks.
And these weren't just unique features.
No, they were a cosmological statement. They were proof that this person was destined for universal spiritual leadership. The detailed exploration of these signs became a huge focus for the commentaries later on.
That makes perfect sense. The first sutta, the Mahāpadāna, provides the necessity for a Buddha, but this one, the Acharya Abhuta Sutta, provides the proof of his singular greatness.
You can see why the later scholars ran with it.
I mean, 605 volumes starts to seem almost reasonable when you think about dissecting every one of those details.
It was irresistible material. The sources mention these organizational structures built around the details list of 40 sections, 10 sections about the great being. It shows how the later tradition categorized every unique detail from this sutta. This text gave them the raw material to elevate the biography into a sacred epic.
It's the difference between a historical record of a king's birth and the epic poem written about it.
A perfect analogy. And that brings us full circle. We started with the universal pattern, then we added the unprecedented marvels.
And now we connect back to the catalog that holds it all together.
The Buddha lineage, or Buddhavamsa.
Right.
Found in the Dīgha Nikāya, the Buddhavamsa just formalizes the whole framework. While the Mahāpadāna Sutta established that previous Buddhas existed and followed a pattern,
The Buddhavamsa gives you the list.
it provides the systematic, ordered list, the master ledger. The 24, or sometimes 28, enlightened beings who came before Gautama. It's the definitive register.
So it validates the whole idea that Gautama isn't just a one-off anomaly, but the latest in a defined, repeating cosmic sequence.
It gives names, places, and context to the pattern from the Mahāpadāna Sutta. And by understanding these three documents together, the pattern, the marvel, and the catalog, you really get a complete three-dimensional view of the story.
This has really been a true deep dive into the architecture. We've gone past the sofa story to the blueprint underneath, that split between the primary canonical accounts and the vast commentary tradition.
And we've mapped how those ideas show up in the core texts. Mahāpadāna Sutta gives you the universal pattern that applies to all Buddhas.
Then, the Acharya Abhuta Sutta provides the marvelous and unprecedented details, the things that make our Buddha unique, which then fueled centuries of scholarly expansion.
And for you, the learner, just recognizing those categories is the essential skill. It lets you critically engage with any information you come across about the Buddha's life.
You're not just reading a story anymore.
No, you're reading a meticulously constructed historical and theological framework.
You know, if we zoom out one last time, the sources present this really fascinating tension. On the one hand, they establish the Buddha as a figure defined by these predictable, repetitive, cosmic patterns.
But then they immediately highlight his life through the lens of the marvelous and unprecedented,
Exactly.
which leaves you with a really provocative thought to explore on your own.
Let's hear it.
If the canonical purpose of the Mahāpadāna Sutta was to show the Buddha's life as part of a recurring cycle, how does the deliberate emphasis on the unique, extraordinary wonders in the Acārya Abhuta Sutta change how you personally relate to the historical figure of the Buddha outlined in those earlier, more structural texts?
Didn't got that tension. Deep dive complete.